About to get started here. Just remind everybody, keep your cameras off, microphones muted. Use the raised hand feature to indicate you'd like to ask a question. We'll try to get in as many as we can. And with that, we'll begin with questions. Going to start with Chris Camrani of The Athletic, followed by Dirk Facer of the Deseret News. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Mark, from administrative standpoint, speaking only on Utah's behalf, obviously, how much input did you have in the remaking of this schedule from Utah's standpoint?
Thanks, Chris. Good to hear from you. You know, it's really not about me or Utah. I think what the story here is the collaborative approach that the league leadership, starting with Commissioner Scott, Woody Dixon, and our football coaches, we've really worked for months, and certainly in the last few weeks since we got the July 10th edict from our presidents and CEOs to come out with the schedule today. It's been very collaborative, and I think the success of that is shown in today's schedule.
Okay, we'll go with Dirk Facer, Deseret News, and then Josh Newman of the Tribune. Let's go ahead with Josh. We'll come back to Dirk.
Hey, Mark. I guess that Larry said that, the training camp conference-wide can begin on August 17th. Not every school will potentially be in that position. Have you spoken with Kyle yet about a potential start date?
At this point, Josh, we're planning on starting as is the 20 hours, which is the first big step on Monday. As the commissioner mentioned earlier today, that's video work, that's continued strength and conditioning work, and then, of course, getting on the field with walkthroughs. We'll do that for a few weeks, and our plan as it sits today is to be able to start contact practice on the dates that you mentioned. Again, this is all going to be decided by where our county and university officials are at, and our state officials, and we'll continue to follow their lead, but that's our plan as we sit here today.
Okay, let's go with Dirk Facer, followed by Josh Furlong of KSL.
Hey, Mark, I finally figured this thing out. I'm going to ask you, how you doing? There's a lot of, the schedule's kind of got a lot of games in November and December. Any concern if you do have fans that it's going to be a little cold that time of year? And I noticed there were a lot of decisions like the Arizona State game and the Los Angeles game being early in that. Was that on purpose?
Well, you might see me smiling because the fact that we're talking about that shows that we might be making some progress, because we're actually talking about games and where they land and if there will be snow. And I'm sure the next question will be what time of these games are going to go. So it's fun to actually be talking about the typical questions that you might get when the schedule comes out. But, this is a big geometry puzzle that we put out today that had so many factors going into it. We agreed as ADs early on, and our football coaches agreed that things like rivalries would be secondary to being as strategic as we could to lay out the schedule. Just again, so impressed by the flexibility, the ability to move games back to that open weekend in December, the fact that you'll see a lot of matching buys that will allow us to also use bye weeks. Those are the key factors that went into setting the schedule. And the others, although important to fan bases and important to student athletes and coaches, rivalries, those were just secondary as we put all this together. The SC UCLA in particular was early on this, because thinking that they might not be able to go, that one could very well go to the back end of the schedule and perhaps find its traditional space. So that's one of the reasons why you might see some of those rivalries a little bit earlier.
Next is Josh Furlong, to be followed by John Kuhn from the Associated Press.
Mark, a couple of weeks ago, you talked to us about the student testing, like the coronavirus testing that's gone on. Is there a reason that the university is not releasing positive results, even if it's not specific athletes that had it, but just overall numbers, especially as some of these games moving forward obviously you're going to have to tell other teams if you can't play a week or something like that?
Appreciate the question, Josh. That's me. I'll own that decision. What I feel that is most important in this matter is we follow all the university and county and state guidelines as it relates to our testing. And so any results, positive, negative, we send on to the proper authorities. And I believe that's our obligation. I just don't believe our student athletes should be singled out in a population for positives and negatives, and we've rolled in that direction. I believe in transparency. I think in this case, it's also our obligation to protect the privacy of our student athletes. To your question about working with institutions that, as we play both in football or any other sport that we play, we'll of course continue to follow all of the regulations and guidelines as expected by our conference.
Next, John Kuhn, followed by Josh Newman.
Mark, just looking at kind of how the schedule came together, how much input did each conference member have in how the schedule was put together? Or were there any specific considerations that you looked for in terms of scheduling with Utah?
Well, very collaborative, as I said in the beginning. Everybody certainly had a voice. Early on, we created the Pac-12 football working group that has tackled so many challenges. I was honored to be a part of that group. Very beginning, working on return to play, return to practice, all those kind of things, and then quickly got into the schedule. Certainly the work of that group was then presented to our head football coaches and athletic directors on a regular basis. So everybody had a voice. We also expected where we could to keep with our standards. So as the earlier question about if you have a 6-day, you're at home before that, trying to be thoughtful in regards to some of the steps we've made in our schedules, to make them just better for everybody. So listen, like any schedule in any year, not everybody's happy. I mean, Utah opens up with 2 road games. That's not necessarily ideal for the University of Utah. But on the backside, we'll have a bunch of home games. So, at this point, I think everyone realized that in a year like this, everyone was going to have to give a little so that the conference could get everything that we needed for our 12 members. And at the end of the day, we're just very pleased to be at this point.
We'll go next to Josh Newman, followed by Chris Kimrani.
Mark, in terms of keeping the players safe, I'm curious, how do you feel about Utah playing not only 2 Friday night games, but also 2 Friday night games coming on short rest, which would eliminate 1 day of preparation and to make sure everything is in order in terms of safety and medical protocols?
I feel good about it. I don't think there's been any medical advice that has suggested a 6-day versus 7-day versus 14-day, et cetera, related to COVID that really has much difference to it. You could also say if you play on Friday night, then you have the additional day for your following game. So, I think that cuts both ways. Again, we'll come off home games prior to that. So I'm not concerned about it. As such, you can see that we kept Friday games and I think some Thursday games within our schedule.
We'll go to Chris Kimrani, followed by Sam Farnsworth.
Hey, Mark, what's the contract status with the guaranteed game with Montana State? And are there plans to reschedule the Wyoming game or work anything else out on that front as well?
Yeah, our intention is to continue to work with those 3 institutions that we're not able to play this year. We're in ongoing conversations with all 3 of them to work some type of arrangement out, but we don't have definitive conclusions on any of those games, but there are ongoing conversations.
We'll go to Sam Farnsworth from KSL TV, followed by Alex Markham.
Hey, Mark. Sorry about that. A little slow on the unmute. Hey, we see what's happening with the NBA and their bubble situation, how well that's going. And then you see the Major League Baseball where teams are traveling and more teams are starting to get COVID and having to delay games or postpone them. With college football and the Pac-12, how many positive tests would it take for a game to be canceled or postponed or delayed? And is that something that you're concerned about potentially?
Of course, I'm concerned. I mean, we said all along that we'd had the benefit in the college football space to watch some of the pro leagues get started, and now with our schedule, the NFL will start, I think, just a little bit before us. But obviously concerned. I like the word the commissioner used earlier today. You know, we go in with a lot of humility into the season, knowing that we don't have a bubble environment for our fall student athletes as they begin their competition. We're asking, you know, of them so much already, but we also know that they have to do whatever they can to keep themselves, you know, safe from this virus when they're away from us. And we're proud of the Utah kids and taking that seriously. But as we go into this adventure, you know, this is an aspirational schedule. We recognize that. We built it to be flexible. We know that in the course of this schedule, there's going to be moments where a team can't play. I mean, I think it would be foolish to not think that it won't happen. Specifically to what it will take for a team to not travel, the league will continue to work on that. I think that's the next step in the ongoing collaborative process of working with our medical team led by Dr. Ackerman. Oregon State is the chair. We'll continue to work with them for what makes sense. I think that, you know, when you talk about how many on a football team it takes, I think you got to dig a little deeper. Do you have a position group that can't go? You know, maybe that's 6 or 7 young men, but then that, you know, you've kind of taken your football team out of the mix if you lost a position. So it's hard to say a number. It's probably going to be more something about a position group. But again, I'm speculating, and until we all come back together and take a real good look at that, this gets back to us being a league only. We can be very collaborative. We can work together to figure that piece out. And quite candidly, it's going to be a week by week basis as we move forward.
We'll go next to Alex Markham, followed by Dirk Facer.
Hey, Mark. So Sam kind of took part of my question there, but just in your talks with the other athletic directors, I mean, how confident would you say that you and everybody are that you guys are either going to be able to actually start the season on time or even be able to have a full season?
I don't know the weather next week, right? I mean, I think if you start predicting, you know, I just think you just put yourself in kind of a box. I'm confident in the work that we've done up until today to give ourselves the best possible chance. I'm confident in the incredible you know, training staff and medical staff we have here at the University of Utah. I'm confident in the student athletes who have taken this so seriously. And I'm not talking just about football. I'm talking about all our student athletes. We have nearly everybody back in some type of volunteer workout. I'm confident in everything they've done is giving us the best chance. But what we've learned about this virus is it's evil and it's relentless. And, you know, we just have to manage what comes. But we have such great people here at the University of Utah. I'm very confident that we're approaching it in the best possible way.
We'll go to Dirk Facer, followed by Josh Furlong.
Mark, do you see any, or are you optimistic that you'll be able to have every fan that wants to come to a game, come to home games, or do you anticipate empty stadiums? Or at this point, you just kind of alluded to the virus being unpredictable. Is that kind of, hey, I have to go into this right now and not, if someone says, hey, you can have crowds at the game and you really can't answer it at this point?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we know we will have limited and minimized fans at Rice-Eccles Stadium this fall. It breaks my heart. You know, we've have an unbelievable fan base here at the University of Utah. And for us to get to this point where we realize there's just real no path forward to have close to 50,000 people in the stands as we sit. So on this matter, you know, we continue to model a few different levels. I think it's probably within 1 or 2 weeks that we'll be really rolling out to our fan base how that will work and, you know, the kind of numbers that will start off. We obviously have a little bit later home game. You know, we'll have a few more weeks to monitor, but we do plan in the next couple of weeks to send to our constituents the kind of the quantity, the how we're going to do it, and the who, which are questions I recognize are on a lot of people's minds in the community. You know, I really give a lot of credit to our event management staff, who has been working with a lot of different folks, including our, you know, obviously our medical folks and our university leadership, to really come up with a real safe plan to get our folks in. You know, the schedule's now out today. We can see these dates, and now we know the next phase of all of this is to get the word out to our fans, and we look forward to doing that as soon as possible.
Next is Josh Furlong, followed by Josh Newman.
Mark, how did Oregon get added to that? Like, how does that decision get made? And then in relation to Oregon, does that change any of the future scheduling with them and how the rotation falls, or is this just a one-time deal no matter what?
Yeah, it was really no rhyme or reason why it was Oregon over Stanford, over whomever else was to be a bye. I can't recall off the top of my head right now. It just kind of, that's the way it fell for various different reasons. You know, we really tried to make the 2020 schedule have no impact on the 2021 schedule. So I don't believe there'll be any impact to you know, to what that will be. So really, there was no, you know, oh, they played each other in the Pac-12 championship game, let's make sure they play this year. There wasn't any of that. It was just kind of the way that it worked out.
We'll go next to Josh Newman, followed by Tom Hackett.
Mark, are you able to share where President Watkins kind of fell on this thing? There was some talk of September 19th for a start, then it turned into September 26th. Are you able to share where she kind of fell on this whole thing?
Well, you know, Ruth is an incredible person, first of all, and also an incredible leader. And she and I have been in incredibly close communication. I gave her, you know, my opinion on where things should fall. I'm not going to, you know, comment on her particular vote on any of that. That's a private matter. But it's fair to say we're absolutely aligned, and we're both very pleased to get to the point where we were able to release the schedule today.
We'll go next to Tom Hackett.
Mark, in the Pac-12 memo released earlier this afternoon, it stated that Pac-12 student athletes that decide to opt out of the season will remain on scholarship as well as in good stead with the conference. Do you have an idea at the minute as to whether or not Utah will have any players that will not participate? And if you don't, which is what I'm assuming you'll say, when do you expect to learn of the players that decide to opt out?
Good to hear from you, Tom, as always. Yeah, I appreciate the question because it's a very important point to point out. I think the conference was the first out of the gate to make it real clear across all our sports that if you did not want to play due to this virus for whatever reason, whether it was because you're affected by it or because of, you know, your mental state or whatever it might be, that your scholarship is retained and we march forward with you in good standing. And that will absolutely be the case. Our coaches understand that, and we plan on doing that. It's the right thing to do. You know, as we sit here today, that has not come up, but I'm also not naive to think that it won't. And when it does, we'll welcome those young people and we'll work with them and get them ready for next year.
Don't see an indication of a next question request. Does anybody have any more before we wrap up here? Okay, with that, we'll conclude. We appreciate it, Mark, and thanks everybody for participating today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.